Namaskar and welcome. Good evening. You're watching News Night. First up from Afghanistan. Rocket hits house near Kabul airport after United States, remember, warned of another terror attack, leaving 2 dead in this particular case. Now, it is believed that US airstrikes targeted Kabul airport suicide bomber, a suspected ISIS-K terrorist in Kabul. It may be recalled that following the deadly bombing in Kabul on August 26, the US military retaliated by conducting a drone strike in Nangarhar, killing an ISIS-K terrorist involved in planning attacks. So in News Night tonight, we talk about the far-reaching security implications of the emanating ground situation in Kabul, even at a time when US continues to pledge to strike back. But we talk about the implications as far as immediate neighborhood is concerned. And also, having said that, as far as India-Afghans ties are concerned, is India looking at a reset or a rethink in strategy, considering the change in scenario as far as government there is concerned in Afghanistan? But first up on Newsnight, here are the headlines. US carries out military strike in Kabul. Strike targets suspected ISIS-K suicide car bomb. Strike comes the day after US President Joe Biden says another terrorist attack highly likely in the next 24 to 36 hours in Kabul. US enters in final stage of evacuation in Afghanistan. Joe Biden says despite the treacherous situation in Kabul, US continues to evacuate civilians. Last UK military flight leaves Afghanistan. Boris Johnson says UK will remain represented in the region. France and Britain to submit a resolution to an emergency UN meeting due Monday, proposing a safe zone in Kabul. In other news, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses the nation on Mann Ki Baat program, says the youth of India has once again infused vitality in hockey after 41 years, remembers Major Dhyan Chand on his birth anniversary, also highlights the importance of Sanskrit as the carrier of wisdom and knowledge. President Ramnath Kovind inaugurates Ramayana conclave in Ayodhya in UP, says Ramayana is a unique epic which presents high ideals and morals of human life through Ram Katha. President also offers prayers at Hanuman Gadi temple in Ayodhya. Union Minister Anurag Singh Thakur launches the Fit India mobile application, says app is a gift for people on National Sports Day, urges countrymen to download app and stresses on the need to contribute in Fit India movement. Union Health Minister also releases. In other news, Union Health Minister releases first batch of Covaxin COVID-19 vaccine made in Bharat Biotech's plant in Ankleshwar in Gujarat, says increase in production capacity of COVID-19 vaccines would add pace to vaccination in India. Meanwhile, 45,083 new cases reported in last 24 hours. Recovery rate stands at 97.53%. Delta outbreak cases grow in New Zealand. Australia reports record day in COVID-19 cases. Numbers in ICU expected to rise. Thousands march in Berlin against COVID-19 regulations. And in sports, Super Sunday for India on National Sports Day. India's Nishad Kumar wins silver in men's high jump at Tokyo Paralympics. Vinod Kumar wins bronze in discus throw. Bhavina Ben Patel signs off with a historic silver medal. And as the evacuations mission entered the final stages in Afghanistan, we begin with the latest updates from war-torn Afghanistan. At least 2 people were reportedly killed in an explosion near Kabul airport in Afghanistan on Sunday evening, hours after the US, remember, warned of the threat of another terror attack. Now, remember, this comes a day after US President Joe Biden, citing military commanders, said that another terrorist attack at Hamid Karzai International Airport is highly likely in the next 24 to 36 hours. Basically, he was referring to the deadline. Now, on Sunday, reportedly, US carried out this military strike targeting suspected ISIS-K terrorists in Kabul. The visuals right on your screen. Earlier on Friday, if you remember, the US military had also conducted drone strikes on the 2 high-profile ISIS-K targets in retaliation to the twin bombing at the Kabul airports, in which 13 American servicemen were killed. Taliban, meanwhile, have reportedly sealed off Kabul airport in order to prevent large crowds from leaving the war-torn country as final NATO evacuation flights left Afghanistan. The massive US-led airlift wound down ahead of an August 31st deadline of the Taliban. Britain too began bringing its troops home from Afghanistan as a Royal Air Force plane carried soldiers landed at the RAF Norton Air Base northwest of London. US President Joe Biden continues to pledge more strikes on ISIS amid credible terror threat. Here's a report.
The danger is not yet over. After the twin blasts outside the Kabul International Airport, NATO forces are busy winding up their evacuation operations from Kabul. With just 2 days left for the deadline of US withdrawal from Afghanistan, the US military has sounded a specific, credible threat at the Hamid Karzai International Airport. US President Joe Biden warned that the situation on the ground continues to be extremely dangerous. He said, "The situation on the ground continues to be extremely dangerous and the threat of terrorist attacks on the airport remains high. Our commanders informed me that an attack is highly likely in the next 24 to 36 hours. We will continue to hunt down any person involved in that heinous attack and make them pay. Whenever anyone seeks to harm the United States or attack our troops, we will respond. That will never be in doubt." The Taliban fighters have stepped up their presence around the Kabul International Airport, and all roads leading to the airport have now more checkposts than before. In another development, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with Turkish Foreign Minister to discuss joint efforts to ensure a safe and orderly evacuation from Afghanistan. Blinken tweeted, "Turkish Foreign Minister and I spoke again today about our continuing joint efforts to ensure a safe and orderly evacuation from Afghanistan. Turkey is an important NATO ally and we are grateful for its partnership." President Joe Biden has set an August 31st deadline for the US military to leave Afghanistan, while allied forces have chosen to leave before. Britain's last military flight left Kabul late on Saturday after evacuating more than 15,000 people in 2 weeks. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that UK will remain represented in the region and will double its humanitarian assistance and development assistance to £286 million this year. He also warned the new regime in Afghanistan that it will have to ensure respect of the human rights, especially of women and girls, and prevent Afghanistan from again becoming an incubator for global terror.
We will remain represented in the region. We're doubling our humanitarian assistance, development assistance this year to £286 million, and together with our allies in America and Europe and around the world, we will engage with the Taliban, not on the basis of what they say, but what they do. And if the new regime in Kabul wants diplomatic recognition, or to unlock the billions that are currently frozen, they will have to ensure safe passage for those who wish to leave the country, to respect the rights of women and girls, to prevent Afghanistan from again becoming an incubator for global terror, because that would be disastrous for Afghanistan.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called a meeting of the permanent members of the Security Council to discuss the chaotic situation in Afghanistan. Guterres sent letters formally inviting the United States, Britain, France, Russia and China for the meet on Monday. The Slovenian European Union presidency has convened an extraordinary meeting of EU Home Affairs ministers on the current situation in Afghanistan. The meeting will be chaired by Slovenian Minister of the Interior Alex Hoss, and will take place on 31st August. Meanwhile, Afghans desperate to leave the country had been rushing to get to the airport in Kabul, but now those who are not able to get there or have no way to get onto international evacuation flights have been heading to the land borders seeking to cross over to Pakistan or Iran. Bureau Report, DD India.
Meanwhile, resistance to Taliban and its affiliates continues to gain a lot of traction, particularly at the UN stage. Hitting out at Pakistan for its alleged support to terror and terror organization, Mahmoud Saikal, Afghanistan's former deputy foreign minister and also ambassador to the UN in Australia, has said that Pakistan had birthed Taliban in an attempt to counter India. In a series of tweets, the former Afghan envoy has said, let's take a look at those tweets. The Taliban takeover of Kabul has already invited the radical extremist terrorist groups in region to move into Afghanistan. He further says that the creeping aggression of Pakistan will soon turn Afghanistan into a breeding ground of terror, jeopardizing international peace and security. And in a subsequent tweet, former Afghan envoy also adds, under UN Charter, UNSC is obliged to deal with it in order to restore peace and security in Afghanistan. Pakistan's strategic ally China may be reluctant to cooperate within the council, in which case a resolution could be presented to the UN General Assembly. Also, in the same series of tweets, former Afghan envoy adds only a policy of pressure, sanction and condition-based rapprochement with Pakistan can bring real positive change in Afghanistan and maintain international peace and security, unquote. In fact, the former Afghan government first vice president and self-proclaimed acting president Amarullah Saleh on Saturday told one news organization that Taliban rule won't last long in Afghanistan. In fact, quoting an interview with Euronews, speaking from Panjshir Valley, Saleh has said, and I quote, Taliban is unacceptable to the people of Afghanistan and the election of a leader by a group is unacceptable. It is impossible for Taliban rule to last long in Afghanistan. Also, according to Saleh, Taliban have neither external nor internal legitimacy and they will soon face a deep military crisis with other areas besides Panjshir mounting resistance against them. Those strong words coming from Amarullah Saleh, caretaker president of Afghanistan. And with that, let's quickly get into our In Focus talking point tonight on Newsnight. We talk about the implications of yet another US strike. Remember, United States of America claiming rocket strike near Kabul airport. Rocket strike at the Kabul airport, leaving 2 dead. Let me quickly go across to my panelists on the show. We are joined by Ambassador Mohan Kumar joining us on the show, former senior diplomat and chairman RIS. Mohan Kumar is joining us, and also Alok Bansal, strategic expert as well as director, India Foundation. Thank you very much, Mr. Bansal, also for joining us. Ambassador Kumar, quickly, taking a cue from the latest development, seems that Biden is walking the talk of striking at ISIS. Latest in series, what we saw, a blast in Kabul, leaving 2 dead. That's what the reports are confirming, certain Western media, quoting Western media reports. How do you see this moving forward from here? The implications of these developments in the last 48 hours, considering Biden had already talked very, very openly and clearly about the intelligence on a terror attack or a threat of a terror attack.
Thank you very much, Sakal, for having me on your show. I think it's not for nothing that Afghanistan is described often as the graveyard of empires. My reading of the situation is that nobody is in control. Not the US, not Taliban, not NATO, not anybody, not even Pakistan. So you have a country which is under nobody's sway or control, and the situation is as fluid as it can be. I think everybody is doing their best. Everybody is trying to jostling for position and power in this graveyard of empires. So we will just have to wait and see. My reading of the situation is that you need strategic patience, and that is what India is exercising at present. I'm particularly happy. I'm personally happy that we have chosen the path of strategic patience. We will have to wait it out. So that is very briefly my reading of the situation. American intelligence assessment is what it is. I think they've got it right at times they've got it wrong, frankly. So when President Joe Biden tells us that he expects a terrorist attack in Kabul, in Afghanistan, that is not rocket science given the present situation. But we will just, as I said, have to wait and see how the situation evolves, because you are seeing, frankly, too many forces at work. And as we speak, the jostling for position and power is going on. So it's very, very hard to predict the outcome at this point.
Mr. Bansal, your thoughts, same question, your thoughts. How do you see the implications from here on? At least till 31st of August, situation will remain critical.
See, undoubtedly, we need to understand that after 31st of August, you will see Taliban showing its true colors, because Taliban is making statements which are talking of moderation, talking of inclusion. All this is as long as the Western presence is there in Kabul airport and Taliban wants acceptability from the international audience. Otherwise, Taliban is wedded to an ideology which is extremely obscurantist and radical. And Islamic State, which is actually targeting now Kabul, and you saw the rocket attack, is also wedded to the same ideology. There is actually two competitors trying to lead the global jihad. And Islamic State probably feels that at this point of time, it has an opportunity to target both Taliban and the United States. And it also feels that because of Taliban's statements of moderation, it is in a position to win a large number of foot soldiers of Taliban to its own ideology. So as long as this ideology is propagated, and which will continue to be propagated by Taliban, which is wedded to this ideology, we are going to see turbulence in Afghanistan. So those countries, those international actors who have been talking that peace will return to Afghanistan with the return of Taliban, I think are living in a fool's paradise, because with Taliban's presence, Afghanistan is going to remain turbulent.
Right.
A vast majority of Afghans do not like Taliban and are opposed to it. So you will see a turbulent phase. And as and when Taliban manages to consolidate its grip on Afghanistan, this ideology will permeate across Afghanistan's borders to its neighboring states. And
many stakeholders, Mr. Bansal, continuing with that thought and quickly on that one, do you think now these stakeholders and the blasts and the terror attacks, the developments in the last 48 hours, the mayhem, the bloodshed, this is now slowly folding multiple war fronts? Whether US wants to attack ISIS, Al-Qaeda versus Taliban, Al-Qaeda and Taliban alignment, Taliban-Pakistan alignment?
Undoubtedly. In fact, it will create Afghanistan into a mayhem.
Yes.
And this will become the sinkhole where all the terror outfits, all the radical outfits will find refuge. Be it Chechnya, be it Uyghurs, be it any Uzbeks, Tajiks, all the radical outfits, all the terrorist outfits will find their refuge here. And the US, feeling that they will probably bring in peace by extricating themselves from Afghanistan, will not serve. We'll probably return back to the situation as it existed before 2001, because the same obscurantist ideology is prevailing. Although Pakistan has links both with Taliban and Islamic State Khorasan, but even they will find it difficult once the tiger is unleashed to control it completely. So this turbulence that we are seeing today is actually going to exacerbate in days to come.
Ambassador Mohan Kumar, but one would wonder why some of the European nations, rather international community, is falling short of at least not really pointing fingers at Pakistan, but as increasingly the role of ISIS and Al-Qaeda gets clearer on ground, nobody is talking about Pakistan?
Well, I think people are reserving their judgment, Sakal. Frankly, there is a use for Pakistan at this stage. People are even, trying not to be too belligerent vis-a-vis Taliban, because we just don't know. I really think it's not that European countries or the United States is unaware of the role played by Pakistan, but because of the fluidity of the situation in Afghanistan, nobody wants to burn the boats with anybody. That's the way I see it. Everybody who has followed the situation in Afghanistan knows Pakistan's role in this. I completely agree, by the way, with Mr. Bansal, that even Pakistan is not going to find this easy. You know, you're riding the tiger by holding on to its tail. It's not easy at all for them. You know, there is a saying in diplomacy, be careful what you wish for. Pakistan has wished for Taliban to come to power because of the spite against India. But I would say to Pakistan, be careful what you wish for, because you might get it, and then you will find it very, very difficult to deal with it. So my assessment is, it is not that the European countries or the United States, the international community is unaware, but they are just reserving judgment and trying to play the waiting game, including the UN Security Council and others. That's my reading of the situation.
And citizens of Afghanistan will continue to bear the brunt. And in today's attack, reportedly one child is amongst the deceased. And whether it is Taliban forming the government in alignment with Al-Qaeda or ISIS, at the end of the day, it's going to be, in fact, it's, you know, it is a terror state in making. The implications of that, Ambassador Kumar, are going to be extremely dangerous. We will talk about the domestic implications and diplomatic and international implications a little bit. Before that, let's, I want my producer to play that graphics for our viewers, which talks about the UN 12th report of analytical support and sanctions monitoring team. And Ambassador Kumar and Mr. Bansal, I would like to draw your attention. Let's play those graphics for our viewers. Now, this is the report by the United Nations Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team, which has drawn links between Al-Qaeda as well as Pakistan, the connection basically, just some of the, a bit of an operative portion of that report. Let's take a look at that. It says that, that's the report. Thank you very much. Significant part of Al-Qaeda resides in Afghanistan and Pakistan border region alongside Al-Qaeda. Can Pakistan counterclaim this? Al-Qaeda fighters and other extremist elements are aligning with Taliban, again located in parts of Afghanistan. Can Pakistan explain this? Taliban has begun to tighten its control over Al-Qaeda. Well, we will have to see how this pans out. Taliban continues to gather information on foreign terrorist fighters. Well, the report talked about how they are gathering information in terms of registering their details as well. Ties between Al-Qaeda and Taliban continue to remain close. Also, the report says Al-Qaeda operates under the Taliban umbrella from Kandahar, Helmand and Nimruz provinces. Now, these are the provinces in Afghanistan, obviously. Al-Qaeda reportedly consists primarily of Afghan and Pakistani nationals. Al-Qaeda and like-minded militants continue to celebrate developments in Afghanistan. Now, Ambassador Kumar, very quickly, this report, yes, we can come out of that. This report has been just out, this report was out in June. This report was out in June, and international community cannot shy away from the fact. I mean, this needs to be discussed, talked, deliberated, because if we think that we can shut our eyes, so whosoever forms the government in Afghanistan, that's going to unleash reign of terror across the globe.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with you. In many ways, the international community is merely discovering what India has been saying for the last many, many years in terms of the nexus between Pakistan and the terrorist groups. So what you are seeing is official confirmation by United Nations agencies and others of a situation that was already known to India, and India has been crying from the rooftops about this. But what happens is realpolitik often wins out. And that is what we have seen in the past. I'm sure, though, that this time will be different. And one of the reasons why Joe Biden is yet to contact the Pakistani Prime Minister is that, mainly because everyone knows the role played by Pakistan. Pakistan's obsession for strategic depth vis-a-vis India has translated into support for terrorists. They want strategic depth vis-a-vis India at any cost. And the cost for Pakistan itself has been significant.
Okay.
So they're willing to do that. because India for them represents an existential threat.
Absolutely.
So as long as you
In
have
fact,
a
the
state
former
like
Afghan
Pakistan,
envoy goes on to say that Pakistan birthed Taliban to counter India. Well, that's a separate discussion altogether. Ambassador Mohan Kumar and Alok Bansalji, please stay with us. We have some more developments coming in and we'll come to you again for the reactions. Meanwhile, France and Britain will submit a resolution to an emergency United Nations meeting which is due on Monday, proposing safe zone in Kabul to try and protect people trying to leave Afghanistan. French President Emmanuel Macron said on Sunday, let's take a look at his statement. Our resolution proposal aims to define a safe zone in Kabul under UN control, which would allow humanitarian operations to continue. Macron told French newspaper that, in fact, this was an interview he gave to French newspaper published on Sunday. And also on a visit to Mosul in Iraq, Macron later confirmed the comments and said he was hopeful the resolution would be welcomed favorably. Safe zone in Kabul under UN control is what France is proposing. And also Pope Francis on Sunday called on the world's Christians to pray and carry out fasting to ask God to bring about peace and coexistence in Afghanistan. Speaking to pilgrims and tourists in St. Peter's Square for his weekly blessing, he said he was following events in Afghanistan with great worry and was participating in suffering of those mourning the dead in the last Thursday's suicide attacks. Also adding, he who was close to those who are seeking help and protection, an apparent reference to those trying to leave the country. Okay, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, a quick reaction on France's proposal of a safe zone, and I will take that reaction from both our panelists. Ambassador Mohan Kumar.
I think it's a very practical move on the part of France. My concern is that this might entail negotiating with Taliban. Otherwise, I don't see how you can have a safe zone in that area. And to me, negotiating with Taliban at this stage confers legitimacy on Taliban. So that would be a concern that I have. But otherwise, it's a practical proposal because it's a mess out there. Absolutely. It's a complete mess. And if you want to evacuate people, if you want to provide aid to people who need it in Afghanistan, you need a safe zone. So it is a typical UN playbook move, if you like. This is the first thing that the UN normally does, which is create a safe zone in a conflict-ridden area. So that's what they're trying to do. I wish them luck. As I said, my only concern would be who do you negotiate with, and what is the kind of bargaining that could go on. Taliban is very conscious this time of the fact that a huge amount of funds are blocked.
Yes.
There is a huge amount of funds.
It's an interesting thought. Let me quickly take. Okay, let me quickly take this to Mr. Bansal. Adding to that, UN, rather than coming up with those noble ideas of creating safe zones, don't you think now it's time for UN, for its relevance as well as an international body, to press for the sanctions and cut the backbone, break the backbone of terror organization, rather than talk big, condemn at the world stage? That's not what we need at this hour. Mr. Bansal.
See, firstly, this proposal of safe zone is nice but impractical. It's just not feasible. Firstly, because Taliban has not abided by any of the agreements or any assurances that they have given till now. They are still moving around. The reports that I am getting even today from cities like Herat, Kandahar, etc., is that they are still moving from house to house looking for people who collaborated with the government or were in part of the government. So they are not going to abide by anything if you want to create a safe zone. That safe zone would remain dependent on the goodwill of the Taliban, which they can decide anytime. As it is, the airport is now being handed over to Taliban. So what is the sanctity of that safe zone? How will you maintain that safe zone? How will you evacuate people from that safe zone? The fact of the matter is, yes, there is no doubt that all these obscurantist and radical outfits like Al-Qaeda, Islamic State are having links with Pakistan's ISI. Pakistan ISI is guilty, and Pakistan's security establishment is guilty of having trained Taliban in the past. And that's one of the reasons why they were first of the block to say that, yes, we are willing to train Taliban army or Taliban fighters, because they have been doing it earlier de facto. Now they wanted to do it de jure. So the point is, unless, of course, we cut the funding and pressurize Pakistan, this sort of terror outfits will keep mushrooming. And that's why on the social media, there is a huge campaign going on by expatriate Afghans, sanction Pakistan, because they realize the pitiable condition in which they find their country today is only courtesy Pakistan. And that's a fact. And that's why they have been trying to say that please sanction Pakistan, do that. And I think India and other countries should also come. Also, we need to understand, I think the events of past few days would have created certain doubts in the minds of countries like Russia, China, Iran, and to that matter, Central Asian states. Because many of them thought that Taliban's coming to power will firstly send US packing from here and peace would descend. But now they are realizing that coming of Taliban actually is bringing in more radical elements. As you said, Al-Qaeda and other terrorists.
And are they really surprised with these developments? I mean, at the very first outset, trusting Taliban. That's the question. In fact, again, we have this very, very important reaction coming in from our Raksha Mantri, and I would like reactions from the panelists on that. In fact, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has said that the changing equation in Afghanistan is a challenge for India, and the government has been forced to rethink its strategy in view of the latest developments. In fact, Raksha Mantri was speaking on defense reforms in shifting national security paradigm at Wellington. Let's listen.
अफगानिस्तान में बदलती इक्वेशंस एक बहुत ही इसे मैं एक चुनौती मानता हूं अपने लोगों के लिए भी और इन परिस्थितियों ने आज हमारे देश को अपनी स्ट्रेटजी पर सोचने के लिए मजबूर किया है हम अपनी स्ट्रेटजी में बदलाव ला रहे हैं क्वेड का फॉर्मेशन जो कि इंडिया ऑस्ट्रेलिया अमेरिका और जापान को मिला जुला कर बना है इसी स्ट्रेटजी के अंतर्गत ही इसका फॉर्मेशन किया गया है इस क्वेड का भी
Addressing the faculty of students of Wellington, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh said that Pakistan is resorting to proxy war and using terrorism as means.
मैं अभिनंदन करना चाहता हूं, सैल्यूट करना चाहता हूं अपने बहादुर सेना के जवानों का, जिन्होंने कि अपने पराक्रम से हमारे उस पड़ोसी को जिसने भारत के साथ आक्रमण करने की ठानी थी, उसको मजे चखाए, उसको शिकस्त दी। अब फ्रंट वार करना अब उनके बस की बात नहीं, तो अब उन्होंने प्रॉक्सी वार का सहारा लेना प्रारंभ किया है। आतंकवाद अब उनकी स्टेट पॉलिसी का एक पार्ट बन गया है, अभिन्न अंग बन गया है, और उसने आतंकवाद का पूरा सहारा लेना शुरू किया और आतंकियों को हथियार देना, पैसे और ट्रेनिंग देना और भारत को निशाना बनाना, केवल यही लक्ष्य रह गया है।
And let's go back to final comments from Ambassador Mohan Kumar and Bansal. Mr. Bansal, Ambassador Kumar, coming to you first. Now, a rethink, reset or a relook at the strategy would mean what for India?
No, I think India has to closely monitor the situation. And I wouldn't like to use the word rethink, but we need to constantly adjust our strategy, if you like. I said in the beginning, and I will repeat it now, our policy has to be based on strategic patience and on close monitoring of the situation. The question and the challenge for India is how to ring fence India so that these adverse security situation in Afghanistan does not impact the security situation in India. That is the biggest challenge for me. The Al-Qaeda, the ISIS, the other groups should not re-establish links and to create problems in our country. That for me is the most fundamental challenge.
Absolutely.
So I would be on the lookout, but I wouldn't necessarily advocate a fundamental rethink. I think our policy is characterized by strategic patience. We will wait it out. We're not in a hurry to deal with anybody there. There may have been back channel talks, but that's a different thing. I think official recognition, official talks, official communication should wait. We should just wait it out.
Yes, absolutely. And Mr. Bansal?
See, I have no doubts that India has to be circumspect as long as Indian citizens are in Afghanistan and our friends have to be extricated from Afghanistan. True. I think once we have because our primary interest at this time is safety of our friends and our citizens. Once they have been evacuated from Afghanistan, then we can have a rethink. To my mind, India should legitimately and ideally support the constitutional head of Afghanistan, that is Amrullah Saleh, who after the departure of President Ashraf Ghani is constitutionally and legally the president of Afghanistan.
And he's giving interviews to Indian media. He's talking
He's
about
giving
it
interviews
openly.
to Indian media. He's seeking support from international community.
Yes, yes.
And we must understand that if Taliban manages to vanquish this last resistance, Taliban is not going to remain confined to the geographical frontier.
I want to ask this very small question finally. So this good Taliban versus bad Taliban, whosoever takes over the reins, it's about, are we looking at a world where one part of the world is legitimizing terror in the other part of the world? Maybe it's just a small country like Afghanistan, but it's going to be terror organization with a different name.
Good Taliban is an oxymoron. This is actually
yes.
a Pakistani construct just to fool the world. Pakistanis have managed to hoodwink the Americans, and that's why this good Taliban concept or whatever statements that are coming out from Kabul or Doha are primarily to hoodwink the world. As I told you, I'm getting reports continuously from the ground in Afghanistan. They are no different from what they were from 1960 to 2001. They are still tormenting the women.
So those who are trying to coin this narrative, the myth is already busted. There is nothing like good Taliban. Taliban is Taliban, which means terror, equivalent to terror, and they have a baggage in history or whatever you call it behind them, and that too a long one. Meanwhile, thank you very much, Mr. Bansal and Ambassador Mohan Kumar. It was such a pleasure talking to you about the various dimensions extremely comprehensively, both of you gentlemen. Thank you so much. And now let's move on to other stories that we are tracking for you on Newsnight tonight under national developments. Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted the importance of Sanskrit as the symbol of wisdom and knowledge. Speaking in his Mann Ki Baat program, Prime Minister asked people to learn Sanskrit to experience true Indian wisdom. He said that today Sanskrit is being adopted to suit modern trends.
Sanskrit is the soul of India. It symbolizes India's wisdom. Prime Minister Narendra Modi underscored the importance of Sanskrit and said that while Sanskrit is preserving our ancient knowledge, it's keeping pace with modern times as well. In this regard, he cited how Sanskrit is being used as the method of communication by a group of radio jockeys in Gujarat.
नमो नमः सर्वेभ्यः मम नाम गंगा भवन्तु शृण्वन्तु रेडियो यूनिटी 90 FM एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत अहम् एकता मूर्तेयाः मार्गदर्शिका एवं रेडियो यूनिटी माध्यमे आर्जे अस्मि अद्य संस्कृत दिनम् अस्ति सर्वेभ्यः बहवः शुभकामनाः अस्ति सरदार वल्लभभाई पटेल महोदयस्य लोहपुरुषः इति उच्यते त्रयोदशाविंशतिसहस्रतमे वर्षे लोहसंग्रहस्य अभियानं प्रारब्धम् 34 टन् परिमितं लोहस्य गलनं कृतम् झारखण्डस्य एकः कृषकः मृद्गरस्य दानं कृतवान् भवन्तु शृण्वन्तु रेडियो यूनिटी 90 FM एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत.
Today, Sanskrit is being taught in schools and universities all over the world. The PM underlined the importance of Sanskrit worldwide and said that many people in different nations are engaged in the inspirational work of teaching Sanskrit. The PM made a reference to a well-known Sanskrit scholar and teacher in Ireland, Rutger Kortenhorst. He also spoke about Dr. Chitrapat Prabandhavidya and Dr. Kusuma Rakshamani, who are promoting Sanskrit language in Thailand. Another person who found mention in the PM's address is Professor Boris Zakharin, who teaches Sanskrit at the Moscow State University in Russia.
अमृतम संस्कृतम मित्र सरसम सरलम वचः एकता मुल्कम राष्ट्रे ज्ञान विज्ञान पोषकम. अर्थात हमारी संस्कृत भाषा सरस भी है सरल भी है. संस्कृत अपने विचारों अपने साहित्य के माध्यम से ये ज्ञान विज्ञान और राष्ट्र की एकता का भी पोषण करती है, उसे मजबूत करती है. संस्कृत साहित्य में मानवता और ज्ञान का ऐसा ही दिव्य दर्शन है जो किसी को भी आकर्षित कर सकता है. हाल ही में मुझे कई ऐसे लोगों के बारे में जानने को मिला जो विदेशों में संस्कृत पढ़ाने का प्रेरक कार्य कर रहे हैं. ऐसे एक व्यक्ति हैं श्रीमान रटगर कॉर्टेनहॉर्स्ट, जो आयरलैंड में संस्कृत के जाने माने विद्वान और शिक्षक हैं और वहाँ के बच्चों को संस्कृत पढ़ाते हैं. इधर हमारे यहाँ पूरब में भारत और थाईलैंड के बीच सांस्कृतिक संबंधों की मजबूती में संस्कृत भाषा की भी एक अहम भूमिका है। डॉक्टर चिरापत प्रपंड विद्या और डॉक्टर कुसुमा रक्षामणि, ये दोनों थाईलैंड में संस्कृत भाषा के प्रचार प्रसार में बहुत महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभा रहे हैं। उन्होंने थाई और संस्कृत भाषा में तुलनात्मक साहित्य की रचना भी की है। ऐसे ही एक प्रोफेसर हैं श्रीमान बोरिस जाखरिन, रशिया में मॉस्को स्टेट यूनिवर्सिटी में ये संस्कृत पढ़ाते हैं। उन्होंने कई शोध पत्र और पुस्तकें प्रकाशित की हैं। उन्होंने कई पुस्तकों का संस्कृत से रूसी भाषा में अनुवाद भी किया है। इसी तरह सिडनी संस्कृत स्कूल ऑस्ट्रेलिया के उन प्रमुख संस्थानों में से एक है जहां विद्यार्थियों को संस्कृत भाषा पढ़ाई जाती है। ये स्कूल बच्चों के लिए संस्कृत ग्रामर कैंप, संस्कृत नाटक और संस्कृत दिवस जैसे कार्यक्रमों का भी आयोजन करते हैं।
Efforts which have been made in recent times have brought a new awareness about Sanskrit. The PM said that now is the time to double down on our efforts in this direction. Bureau Report, DD India.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared his thoughts in the 80th episode monthly of Mann Ki Baat program. Prime Minister remembered the great hockey legend Major Dhyan Chand on his birth anniversary today, saying that Indian hockey team's feat at Tokyo Olympics has drawn the youth to sports. Underlining India's stellar performance at the Tokyo Olympics, Honorable Prime Minister said that this passion for sports is the greatest tribute to Major Dhyan Chand.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his Mann Ki Baat program paid rich tributes to hockey legend Major Dhyan Chand on his birth anniversary. It is also celebrated as National Sports Day. Prime Minister Modi linked India's stellar performance at the Tokyo Olympics with the memory of Major Dhyan Chand.
दुनिया में भारत की हॉकी का डंका बजाने का काम ध्यानचंद जी की हॉकी ने किया था और 4 दशक बाद, करीब करीब 41 साल के बाद, भारत के नौजवानों ने, बेटे और बेटियों ने हॉकी के अंदर फिर से एक बार जान भर दी। और कितने ही पदक क्यों न मिल जाए, लेकिन जब तक हॉकी में पदक नहीं मिलता, भारत का कोई भी नागरिक विजय का आनंद नहीं ले सकता है। और इस बार ओलंपिक में हॉकी का पदक मिला, 4 दशक के बाद मिला।
Prime Minister appealed to the countrymen that the momentum in sports and games should be maintained and should be strengthened further so that India emerges as a world power in sports.
अब देश में खेल, खेलकूद, स्पोर्ट्स, स्पोर्ट्समैन स्पिरिट अब रुकना नहीं है। इस मोमेंटम को पारिवारिक जीवन में, सामाजिक जीवन में, राष्ट्र जीवन में स्थायी बनाना है, ऊर्जा से भर देना है, निरंतर नई ऊर्जा से भरना है। घर हो, बाहर हो, गांव हो, शहर हो, हमारे खेल के मैदान भरे हुए होने चाहिए। सब खेलें, सब खिलें। और आपको याद है ना, मैंने लाल किले से कहा था, सबका प्रयास। जी हाँ, सबका प्रयास। सबके प्रयास से ही भारत खेलों में वो ऊंचाई प्राप्त कर सकेगा जिसका वो हकदार है। मेजर ध्यानचंद जी जैसे लोगों ने जो राह बताई है, उसमें आगे बढ़ना हमारी जिम्मेवारी है। बरसों बाद देश में ऐसा कालखंड आया है कि खेलों के प्रति परिवार हो, समाज हो, राज्य हो, राष्ट्र हो, एक मन से सब लोग जुड़ रहे हैं।
Prime Minister has urged the nation that with collective endeavor, let us transform the mantra of Sabka Prayas into reality. Talking to the youth of the country, Prime Minister said that we must garner expertise in variety of sports. He added that even in villages, sports competitions should be held successfully. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, Well, it was an eventful Sunday. Also on Sunday, on the occasion of the Fit India Movement's second anniversary and to celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, the Union Minister Anurag Singh Thakur launched Fit India mobile application as well. The Fit India app is accessible in Hindi and English. This app has all the features of fitness tracker such as steps counter, sleep tracker and a tracker to monitor one's water and calories intake as well.
On the occasion of the Fit India Movement's second anniversary and to celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, Union Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports Anurag Singh Thakur launched the Fit India mobile app on Sunday. The launch took place at Delhi's iconic Major Dhyan Chand National Stadium, where he was joined by Minister of State, Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports Nisraj Pramanik. The duo then virtually connected with the captain of the Indian hockey team, Manpreet Singh, wrestler Sangram Singh, Captain Annie Divya, a school student, a housewife and a senior citizen to test the Fit India app that is now available on different platforms.
ये फिट इंडिया मूवमेंट के अंतर्गत ही फिट इंडिया मोबाइल ऐप लॉन्च आज की जा रही है। आप चलते फिरते भी कभी ये ध्यान नहीं देते होंगे कि आपने कितनी फिटनेस अपनी की, क्योंकि आप उसको मॉनिटर नहीं करते हो। इसके माध्यम से आप मॉनिटर कर पाओगे कि आप प्रतिदिन कितने स्टेप्स चले हो, कितनी एक्सरसाइज की है।
The Fit India app is accessible in Hindi and English. The app has all the features of a fitness tracker, such as a steps counter, sleep tracker, and a tracker to monitor one's water and calorie intake. What's more, for the first time in India, an app has incorporated a fitness test feature, as it also incorporates Fit India's age-appropriate fitness protocols that has been approved by the World Health Organization and tests the fitness level of the user. Based on the results of the fitness tests, the app gives users a fitness score that tells them how fit they are and then further suggests activities to improve their health and fitness levels.
Fitness is easy. एक दर्शाने का काम भी किया गया है, फन एंड फ्री है ये भी बताने का काम किया गया है, एंड कैन बी डन एनीवेयर। आप कहीं पर भी अपने घर पे, पार्क में, बाहर, ऑफिस में, कहीं पर भी कोई फिटनेस एक्टिविटी करते हैं उसको मॉनिटर किया जा सकता है।
The Fit India app also suggests different food items, activities and hydration levels needed based on one's age, gender, current lifestyle and body composition. People can register on various Fit India events through the app itself.
शहर से लेके गांव, गांव से लेके हर गली, भारत की हर प्रांत पर फिट इंडिया को जागरूकता को लोगों ने समझा और आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का जो न्यू इंडिया को फिट इंडिया बनाने का जो प्रयास है वो भी धीरे-धीरे साकार होता जा रहा है।
The Fit India movement was launched on the 29th of August 2019 by Prime Minister Narendra Modi with the vision of making India a fit and healthy nation. Over the past 2 years, the Fit India movement has reached millions of people across the country via its various fitness campaigns such as Fit India School Week, Fit India Freedom Run, Fit India Cyclothon and many others. Currently, the Fit India movement is also conducting Fit India Freedom Run 2.0 in celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, an initiative of the central government to celebrate and commemorate 75 years of India's independence. Sports Desk, DD India.
Also, President launched and laid foundation stone of various projects of the Department of Culture and Tourism, Government of UP at Ayodhya. President said that the projects related to the Ramayana circuit being developed under the Swadesh Darshan scheme of the Government of India, which were inaugurated, would provide various facilities to the tourists and devotees. Here's a report.
President Ram Nath Kovind on Sunday inaugurated Ramayan Conclave in Ayodhya in Uttar Pradesh. President also launched and laid foundation stone of various projects of the Development of Culture and Tourism, Government of Uttar Pradesh at Ayodhya. President said that the projects related to the Ramayan circuit being developed under the Swadesh Darshan scheme of the Government of India, which were inaugurated, would provide various facilities to the tourists and devotees. He added that the promotion of life values of Ramayan is necessary because these values would always remain relevant for humanity. President said Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore had said that both the Ramayana and the Mahabharata contain the visions of the soul of India.
गुरुदेव रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर ने कहा था कि रामायण और महाभारत ये दो ऐसे ग्रंथ हैं कि जिसमें भारत की आत्मा के दर्शन होते हैं। ये कहा जा सकता है कि भारतीय जीवन मूल्यों के आदर्श, उनकी कहानियां और उपदेश रामायण में संपूर्ण रूप से समाहित है। मेरा भी मानना है कि रामायण एक ऐसा विलक्षण ग्रंथ है जो राम कथा के माध्यम से विश्व समुदाय के समक्ष मानव जीवन के उच्च आदर्शों और मर्यादाओं को प्रस्तुत करता है।
President said that he believed that Ramayana is a unique epic which presents high ideals and morals of human life through Ram Katha. Along with the philosophy, the Ramayana contains the moral code of conduct which gives us every aspect of life. Highlighting the presence of Ram Katha in many countries worldwide, the President said Ram Leela of Bali Island in Indonesia is particularly famous. He added that the overseas Indians have kept Ram Katha and Ram Leela alive in many countries including Maldives, Mauritius, Trinidad and Tobago, Nepal, Cambodia and Suriname.
रामायण में दर्शन के साथ साथ आदर्श आचार संहिता भी उपलब्ध है, जो जीवन के प्रत्येक पक्ष में हमारा मार्गदर्शन करती है। संतान का माता पिता के साथ, भाई का भाई के साथ, पति का पत्नी के साथ, गुरु का शिष्य के साथ, मित्र का मित्र के साथ, शासक का जनता के साथ और मानव का प्रकृति व पशु पक्षियों के साथ कैसा आचरण होना चाहिए, इन सभी आयामों पर रामायण में उपलब्ध आचार संहिता हमें सही मार्ग पर ले जाती है।
Later, President Ramnath Kovind, along with First Lady Savita Kovind and Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, visited Hanumangadi Temple in Ayodhya. President Kovind offered prayers and planted a sapling at the Ram Temple in Ayodhya. After offering prayers at Hanumangadi and Ram Temple, President, along with First Lady Savita Kovind, left from Ayodhya to Lucknow by a special train. With inputs from Ashwini Mishra, Bureau Report, DD India.
And now shifting focus to COVID numbers, here's our comprehensive report.
Fight against pandemic is not yet over. Cases continue to fluctuate as country has registered more than 45,000 COVID cases during last 24 hours. Amid continuous surge in cases in Kerala, the state government has announced several COVID-related restrictions. In the last 24 hours, 31,265 COVID cases have been registered in Kerala. The state government has decided to strictly enforce lockdown on Sundays. Newly announced lockdown measures will be effective from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. However, essential services have been allowed to operate in cities.
This full lockdown is not going to be beneficial to the society also and for curbing the number of the patients. Because if Sunday full vaccinated, vaccination lockdown, definitely Saturday and Monday the rush in the outside public will be more in the malls and also in the theatre and hotels and other things. I think it is of no use in putting one day as a full lockdown.
Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia released the first commercial batch of Covaxin from Chiron Behring Vaccine Facility of Bharat Biotech in Ankaleshwar in Gujarat. Health Minister said that the increase in the production capacity of COVID-19 vaccines would give further impetus to the pace of vaccination in India.
मुझे खुशी है कि वैक्सीन प्रोडक्शन में 1 करोड़ वैक्सीन प्रति मास अंकलेश्वर से भी मिलेगा, इसलिए हमारा प्रोडक्शन वॉल्यूम भी बढ़ेगा और मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में देश में विश्व के सबसे बड़े वैक्सीनेशन अभियान चल रहा है, उसमें सहयोगी होगा.
The pace of COVID vaccination has been accelerated in the country. In the last 24 hours, 45,083 new COVID cases were registered across the country. At the same time, 35,840 patients have recovered. The recovery rate has increased to 97.53%. The total number of active cases is 3,68,558. The daily positivity rate is 2.57%. India's cumulative vaccination coverage has crossed the 63 crore landmark. More than 73,85,000 vaccine doses were administered in the last 24 hours. Amid government efforts, citizens also need to follow COVID-appropriate behavior during upcoming festive seasons to check the spread in the country. Bureau Report, DD India.
And what is happening as far as the overall COVID scenario globally is concerned? New Zealand reported 83 locally required cases on Sunday of the highly infectious Delta coronavirus variant. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has said that some changes on how the outbreak is managed could be announced on Monday. Ardern said her government was seeking more information on the spread of infections. New Zealanders, in meanwhile, have been living virtually virus-free and without curbs until the August outbreak. New South Wales reported record 1,218 coronavirus infections on Sunday as the vast majority in Sydney, the epicenter of the Delta-fueled outbreak, with an additional 6 deaths. More than half of Australians have been in week-long lockdowns as officials in Sydney and Melbourne, the country's largest cities, and the capital Canberra struggle to quell the outbreak. And staying with international news, thousands marched in Berlin on Sunday to protest against the government restrictions aimed at limiting the spread of coronavirus pandemic, even after demonstrations were banned. The march comes a month before a federal election in Germany. And good news from Paralympic in Tokyo. Para-athlete Para-athlete Nishad Kumar clinched a silver medal in the men's high jump T47 event in the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics with an Asian record effort. Nishad cleared 2.06 meter to win the silver and set an Asian record. American Dallas Weiss was also awarded silver as he and Kumar cleared the same height of 2.06 meters. Good news continued. Indian table tennis player Bhavinaben Patel signed off with a historic silver medal in her maiden Paralympic Games. Bhavina scripted history by bagging a silver medal in the Class 4 table tennis event at Tokyo 2020 Paralympics on Sunday. With a resolve and unwavering grit, Patel won the silver medal at the showpiece event after losing to Ying Zhu of China, who is a 2-time Paralympics gold medalist. President Ramnath Kovind, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and others have lauded Bhavina and showered lavish praises for her massive feat at the Tokyo Games. And the National Sports Day ended with a hat-trick of medals at the ongoing Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games. Vinod Kumar threw his best with an Asian record to give India its 3rd medal at Tokyo Paralympics. 41-year-old produced best throw of 19.91 meters to finish 3rd in the men's discus throw at F52 event. Well, on that good news note, it's time to wrap up this edition of Newsnight. From me and my entire team, we'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Thank you so much for tuning in. Meanwhile, news and updates continue on DD India. Stay with us. Namaskar.